Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Sankirtan Prabhu, can you bring the board, please? That's what I wanted to ask you. Because we have the verse written now. But thanks for the water cup. Okay, much better. Okay, we are continuing our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 1, Chapter 8, titled Prayers by Queen Kunti. And we are on text 7 today. Please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. And this is today's verse, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Text 7. Amantrya Panduputramscha शयनेयोद्धव संयुत द्वैपायनादिभिर्विप्र पूजितै प्रतिपूजित आमन्त्र्य पाण्डुपुत्रांश्च शयनेयोद्धव संयुत द्वैपायनादिभिर्विप्र पूजितै प्रतिपूजित आमन्त्र्य पाण्डुपुत्रांश्च शयनेयोद्धव संयुत द्वैपायनादिभिर्विप्र पूजितै प्रतिपूजित आमन्त्र्य पाण्डुपुत्रांश्च द्वैपायनादिभिर्विप्रै पूजितै प्रतिपूजित. Want to chant? Somebody else want to chant? आमन्त्रय पाण्डुपुत्रांश्च शयनेयोद्धव संयुत द्वैपायनादिभिर्विप्रै पूजितै प्रतिपूजित. Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is the word for word translation. Amantriya, inviting. Panduputran, all the sons of Pandu. Cha, also. Shaineya, Satyaki. Uddhava, Uddhava. Samyuta, accompanied. Dvaipayana Adibihi, by the rishis like Vedavyasa. Vipray, by the Brahmanas. Pujitai, being worshipped. Pratipujita, the Lord also reciprocated equally. Translation. Lord Sri Krishna then prepared for his departure. He invited the sons of Pandu after having been worshipped by the Brahmanas, headed by Srila Vyasadeva. The Lord also reciprocated greetings. Please repeat. Lord Sri Krishna then prepared for his departure. He invited the sons of Pandu after having been worshipped by the Brahmanas, headed by Srila Vyasadeva. The Lord also reciprocated greetings. Purport. Apparently, Lord Sri Krishna was a Kshatriya and was not worshipable by the Brahmanas. But the Brahmanas present there, headed by Srila Vyasadeva, all knew him to be the personality of Godhead, and therefore they worshipped him. The Lord reciprocated the greetings just to honor the social order that a Kshatriya is obedient to the orders of the Brahmanas. Although Lord Sri Krishna was always offered the respects due the Supreme Lord from all responsible quarters, the Lord never deviated from the customary usages between the four orders of society. The Lord purposely observed all these social customs so that others would follow him in the future. ॐ अज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितां तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। You're back to the verse by verse mode. It's been such a long time that I don't know how to speak for 45 minutes on one verse now. But this is chapter 8, one of the first chapters in the Bhagavatam where we start getting prayers. I think this is the first set of prayers, isn't it? Vyasadev offers a little bit, I think, when he's in Samadhi. But in general, to Krishna, this is the first chapter where a devotee actually offers prayers. And when I was young, I would read the Krishna book. And then the stories were really interesting. I would go through the stories, the plot points, and everything would come up. And then it would break. And then the devotees would go on a set of prayers to the Lord. And I was thinking, why is this happening? It's like breaking the entire plot of this really nice story that I was reading. You know, like then, like the demigods start off. You start seeing Krishna's birth, and then in the womb, the demigods they start offering prayers for an entire chapter, and then it happens, and then Vasudev starts offering prayers. It's like when you think the plot is moving, it breaks, and then you have these prayers go on. And then I asked my friend, God brother, why is this happening in the Bhagavatam? You know, it's like when it's really nice and then it stops with the prayers. And if you see, probably like 50%, probably more of the Bhagavatam is just prayers. And what he was telling me, which now after many years I get a glimpse of, is through these prayers we actually see the exchange of rasa, this relationship between the Lord and his devotee. We see in every single prayer, this rasa is so different. When the gopis are praying, it's something else. When Mother Kunti is praying, it's something else. When Gajendra is praying to the Lord, it's something else. When Dhruva is praying to the Lord, it's something else. This is where the actual juice of Bhagavatam is. So, but we are still in the plot point of this entire story before we get to the juice, where we have these incredible prayers by Mother Kunti. The context of where this is happening is, in time at least, is the battle of Kurukshetra is done. And then Krishna has been with the Pandavas in Hastinapur for a long time now. And even after the battle, the Pandavas were practically devastated because they've had so much bloodshed that they've seen. And Yudhishthir Maharaj is very, very upset. Although he is now the emperor of this entire kingdom, the entire world, he has absolutely no happiness. So Krishna is there to pacify Maharaj Yudhishthir and then make sure they are in this proper mental state before he can go. And at this point is Krishna actually leaving. Before this, a really horrific thing has also happened, right? You know what's happened just before, in the previous chapter, just in the end, something horrific has happened. Hmm? Yeah, these 5 sons of Draupadi were killed at night when they were sleeping. They've already gone through so much, the Pandavas, and then this kabash. It's horrible what happened. So they're very grieving, and then Krishna stayed with them, okay, to pacify them of this grief also. And now he's leaving, and when he's leaving, he's preparing for his departure. He says the verse says he invited the sons of Pandu. You see, these are the devotees of the Lord, you know? But Krishna had to invite them when Krishna was leaving to Dwaraka. You know why? Why did Krishna have to leave? When somebody dear is leaving, we of course go and send them off when they're departing, right? But here Krishna had to specifically invite the Pandavas. Why? Why do you think so? Any ideas? Correct. That's later. That's what Mother Kunti's prayers is all about, right? Please don't go. Please stay with me. But here he's inviting because they're in incredible separation from Krishna. He's already going to leave. They just don't want to see him leaving. It's a sight that's incredibly painful for the devotee. You know, when you're with the Lord, especially the Pandavas, they were with Krishna physically for such a long time. You know, every time the Pandavas had a problem, Krishna was personally present most of the time. Sometimes he would send somebody or he would help them out. But they spent the maximum number of time. And then when Krishna was leaving, it was an incredibly hard thing for them. They just didn't want to see. But still, Krishna was inviting them. It's fine. You guys can come. I want to see you before I leave. You know, Krishna is inviting them. And then when Krishna was leaving, you had this incredible assembly of Brahmanas also there. So we have these 4 social orders, right? The Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. The entire human society can broadly be categorized into these 4 orders based on the natures that we acquire. Krishna says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. So all of us are born with certain natures and we do certain activities. Based on the natures that we are born and the activities that we do, we can be categorized into these 4 broad categories, which is the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. So the Brahmanas are the topmost in the society. Why? Because they are the intelligent class of the society and they are supposed to lead the society in general. So they consider the head of the society. Without the head, you can't think, you can't do anything properly, right? And then the second class of devotees in the social order are called the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are the administrative class, right? They are there to protect the society, the community. And then you have the Vaishya. The Kshatriyas are compared to the arms of the body, which are there to guard the body, protect the body. And then we have the Vaishyas who actually feed the entire society. They farm, they grow crops, they take care of the animals, and they're bankers. And they deal with money and finance and things like that. And then the 4th class of the society are the Shudras, who are the labor class, who help the other 3 classes in getting their work done. So we could go on just about these 4 classes of how, but the ideal use of these 4 classes is these 4 classes cooperate with each other for the goal of human life, which is actually to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That is why these 4 classes are there. All of us are born with a certain nature. We cannot go against our nature, but how can we use our nature in such a nice way? By cooperatively helping each other in establishing the aim of human life. That's basically the entire Varnashrama system. So then the Brahmanas are respected by everybody in the society. Of course, respect is there. Everybody is respected, but the Brahmanas are accorded more respect, because they are the teachers of the society. They are leading the society in the proper direction. So here there is something a little bit opposite that's happening. So the social custom is that the Brahmanas respect the Kshatriyas. Of course, the respect is there, but it's not very explicit. Whereas for the other three classes, the respect for the Brahmanas is very explicit. They will pay obeisances when a Brahmana comes in. The Kshatriya will pay obeisance, the Vaishya will pay obeisances, the Shudra will pay obeisances. But the Brahmana, even if he doesn't pay obeisances to Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, it's not an offense because they are on a lower platform than him in the sense that they're more advanced in spiritual life. But here you see that first thing that happens when Krishna is departing, the verse says, is after having been worshipped by the Brahmanas and headed by no less than Srila Vyasadeva himself, who in his times was the topmost of all the Brahmanas because he had compiled the Vedas, the Puranas, the Itihasas. So Vyasadeva was considered even among the society of Brahmanas to be somebody who was very respected. But you see that Vyasadeva first offered respects to Krishna. Although Krishna was externally a Kshatriya, right? He was a king, he was in Dwaraka. In fact, he gave his whole army to Duryodhana. That's how powerful of a Kshatriya that he was. Which was actually not the social custom. You would be looked down upon if you did that. Because that's not the actual thing to do. The Brahmana is not supposed to do that. But yet, he did that because whether Krishna is a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, a Brahmana, irrespective of how he comes, he is still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It doesn't change. The role that Krishna plays in his Leela doesn't change the fact that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book, I think, when Krishna kills Putana, such a small baby, is barely like 2-3 days old when Putana comes to kill him. And Krishna just sucks the life air out of Putana. Right? And there people might think, oh, this is such a small infant. How can this be possible that such an infant is killing such a big demon? So there Prabhupada writes, whether Krishna is a small boy or whether Krishna is a big man, he is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It absolutely doesn't change the fact. Leave alone when he is coming in at least a human form. Even when he doesn't take a human form, he is still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The most drastic example, you see that God has a sense of humor. When Swayambhuva Manu was created, and then Brahma asked Swayambhuva Manu to go and populate the earth. Right? This is the instruction that he's giving because he's a Prajapati. What happens at that point when they're going to try to populate the earth? Yeah, the earth is not there. It's completely drowned in a deluge. It's completely submerged. Hiranyaksha has actually drowned Mother Earth in the Garbha ocean. Right? That's what's happening. And they say, where are we going to go and populate the earth when the earth itself is not there? And they were thinking, what's happening? And then something comes out of the nostril of Lord Brahma. And they have no idea what this is. And it's the size of the thing that comes out of Lord Brahma's nostril is less than the top of the thumb. I think that's what the Bhagavatam says. It's smaller than this. Something pops out of Brahma's nose. And they're thinking, and suddenly this thing that comes out is growing and growing and growing. And lo and behold, this is the boar. This is a boar. It's a wild boar. And if you've seen a wild boar, it's not so beautiful. And yet, somehow, Lord Brahma recognizes that, oh, they're thinking so many different, they're speculating, who is this person? What is this thing? And then Brahma comes to this conclusion, oh, is this Vishnu himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And you know how he found that this was Krishna himself? What gave away, you know? No, I don't know actually. But there is one aspect that actually gave away that this was Krishna. For this, I don't think this is directly in the Bhagavatam, but this is in the Vishnu Purana, I think, or the Padma Purana. It says, Mahavaraha Sputa Padmalochanaha. Like even when he was there in the form of a boar, his eyes were lotus like. It gave it away that, oh, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whether Krishna was a boar or a fish or a baby or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya, it doesn't matter. Krishna's position never changes. He is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, it means that he is Swarat. Right? This is the first thing that the Bhagavatam describes Krishna as. Janmadyasya yatonvayaditarachas charteshvabhignya swarat. Swarat means Krishna is independent. He's completely independent to do anything. He's not bound by anything. He can do anything and everything that he wants. And yet, you see how Krishna is behaving. Practically speaking, there are no rules for Krishna. Krishna doesn't come under any of these social customs. None of these etiquettes matter to him because he's the absolute. He is from whom everything emanates. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. For Krishna, he's not inside the rules that he sets. He's completely outside the rules that he sets. And yet, you see how Krishna reciprocated to the Brahmanas. He is still following the social order that he set. Chaturvarnyam maya shrishtam. This is Krishna who has created this social order. Therefore, it is contingent that Krishna respects the order that he creates. Therefore, you see Krishna's behavior is that he pays obeisances to all the Brahmanas. And the Brahmanas accept this also. And Prabhupada writes, the Lord purposely observed all these social customs so that others would follow him in the future. And this is why Krishna is doing it. And you see this in the third chapter of the Gita. Arjuna is asking him this question. Do you know what the third chapter of the Gita starts with? It's always, most chapters start with a question that Arjuna is asking. And I'll give you a clue. The third chapter is Karma Yoga. So what could the question be? Karma or renunciation, right? This is exactly the question that he's asking. In the second chapter of the Gita, Krishna is basically summarizing the entire thing. But then in the end of the second chapter, Krishna is focusing on one thing. And this thing that he is focusing on is called Buddhi Yoga. Use your intelligence, Arjuna. This is very important. Use your intelligence. And then in the end of the second chapter, Krishna says, okay, now go, get up and fight. I've told you everything that I have to say. Go and fight. Arjuna is really confused at this point. And this is what Arjuna wanted to do, right? Leave the battlefield, go and be to himself in the forest, and then just use his intelligence, meditate. Krishna said that, use your intelligence. And now he's saying, go and act, go and do your duty. So Arjuna is very confused. So, do you want me to do my duty? Or do you want me to use my intelligence and just renounce everything? Tell me for sure what I have to do. This is the question that Arjuna is asking. And what is Krishna's answer? Does he say, just use your intelligence? Or does he, and don't do your duty? Or does Krishna say, no, you have to do your duty? What is Krishna's answer? Yeah, it's actually both. Krishna says, you have to renounce. You have to do your duty, but also renounce the results of results of what your activity, your duty, your action performed because of your duty. And he goes on to give this entire cycle of how there should be cooperation between the demigods and the human beings. And when there is cooperation, it rains well, and then therefore you have nice crops and everything is flourishing and everything goes on well. So Krishna goes on after this question for about 15 verses, hammering this point that Arjuna, you really have to work. That's basically his focus. And yet, Krishna himself flips and says, there is one situation in which you don't have any duty to perform. Krishna is saying you definitely need to perform your duty. But then at one point, Krishna comes and says, oh, I have to tell you one more thing. There is one scenario in which you really don't have to work. Do you know what that scenario is? Where Krishna says, you really don't have to perform your duty. For everybody else, we have to perform our duty. But for one person, Krishna says, such a person never has to perform his duty. Do you know what? This Chitta Pragya is second chapter, but Krishna says something very specific. For such a person, you really don't have to perform your duty. You know who this person is? We have many Bhakti Shastris here. Okay, I'll relieve you of your misery. So Krishna says this in in the 17th chapter, 17th verse. He actually goes on to say so many drastic things. You know, he even goes on to say, "My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain." He basically says you have to do your duty, but perform it as a sacrifice. Yajñartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanat. Krishna has said this. But then he flips right in the next verse and says, "But for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty." Raise your hands if you're fully satiated. If you're completely absorbed in the self. For such a person, there is no duty. And this is a description of Krishna himself, right? Another name of Krishna, he's Atmarama. He is completely self-satisfied. For him, there is no duty, according to his own description. But what does Krishna say? He says, a self-realized man has... Okay, before even we go there, why do we perform any duty at all? Why do we have to perform any duty? Why is Krishna saying such a person who is self-satiated, who is completely self-realized, absorbed, has no duty? So therefore, somebody who is not that has duty, right? So therefore, what are we trying to do when we perform our duty? Yeah, we're trying to get something. That is why we're trying to do anything, right? I have to go to my job and do my work so that I can get my salary. And with my salary, I can get something. That's why I'm performing my duty. Because there is something in it for me. That is the reason why I'm performing my duty. But for such a person who doesn't want anything in this world, he's not expecting anything in this world, so there is no duty for such a person. Right? So therefore Krishna is saying, a self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work. Right? This is the thing. So just because such a person has nothing to gain from this world by performing his duty, he doesn't want money, he doesn't want anything material, he doesn't want honor, respect, nothing. He doesn't want anything in this world. Yet, Krishna says, there is no reason not to perform work. Just because you don't have anything to gain, it doesn't mean that you don't have a reason to, you don't have to work. So then Krishna says, therefore, without being attached to the fruits of his activities, perform. Right? So he's speaking about people in general. Now we're working and working and working, and at some point we come to this conclusion that I really don't want anything. So therefore, I'm not expecting anything from the work that I'm doing. This is nishkama karma. You're coming to this position where you're acting, but you don't have any desire for results of that activity. I'm doing it as a matter of duty. Right? When we come to that point, we really don't have to perform our duty. Actually, it's a little bit more. We're performing our duty not just as a matter of performing duty, but for the Supreme Lord. At that point, we don't have to really perform any duty. We are not bound by these 4 classes of Varnashram system. But even for such a person, Krishna is saying, such a person still works. Because that is what has got them to this point. Right? Performing their duty properly has got them to this point. Therefore, there is no reason for them not to work. So it's the same thing applies to Krishna also. Right? For Krishna, there is absolutely nothing that he has to do. But yet, because it is the system that he has put in, he makes sure that he acts properly. And Krishna gives this famous verse, right? Yadyad acharati shreshtas taddad eve taro jana. Whatever great men do, common men follow. And who is greater in this universe than Krishna himself? So therefore, what does Krishna say? Therefore, Krishna says, therefore I perform my duty very diligently. If I stop doing my work, my duty, what happens if Krishna stops doing his duty? What does Krishna say? Yeah, he says the world will be put to ruination. That's what Krishna says. Therefore, ultimately, the buck stops with Krishna. He takes responsibility. Therefore, his etiquette is impeccable outside of Vrindavan. Inside Vrindavan, it's a different story. For that, you have to come to a different level of understanding. But as much as possible, you see Krishna, his etiquette is unbelievable. You see, I don't know if you have read this before or if it's going to come, but when he is departing, you see different. Now we are seeing the different classes of people, right? The Brahmanas are there. Krishna is supposedly playing the role of a Kshatriya. But when he is leaving, you have, even among the brothers, the Pandavas, you see Yudhishthir Maharaj is elder to Krishna, right? And Bhima and Arjuna are his same age. And Nakula and Sahadeva are younger than Krishna. And the way Krishna behaves with each of these people are different. So to Yudhishthir Maharaj, Krishna pays obeisances because Yudhishthir Maharaj is elder to Krishna. To Arjuna and Bhima, Krishna embraces them. And to Nakula and Sahadeva, Krishna accepts their respect. They pay obeisances to Krishna and Krishna accepts their respect. So in every single juncture, you can see this 10th canto, chapter 70. This is, the name of the chapter is Daily Activities of Krishna. It's a description of how Krishna begins his day, how he goes about performing his activities throughout the day. And it's like a perfect grihastha, the way that Krishna behaves. That's why Prabhupada would say, right? If you say Krishna is doing all these things, you also try to lift the Govardhan like Krishna did. But as much as possible, Krishna behaved perfectly. It's in a drastic example, right? These are devotees of the Lord, of course. And one of the most dear devotees of the Lord is Narada Muni. And Krishna has 16,108 palaces in Dwaraka. And Narada Muni is going to visit Krishna. And every time he goes into these palaces, Krishna is personally present there. He's expanded himself into 16,108 forms. And every place he's doing different activities. But every time Narada Muni comes in, Narada Muni is a Brahmana and Krishna is a Kshatriya in the role that he's playing. He invites Narada Muni. He accords him incredible respect, bathes Narada Muni's lotus feet, and takes the water and puts the water on his head. And at the end, Narada Muni is completely bewildered. What is happening, Krishna? And Prabhupada writes that Narada Muni is, although he's a devotee, think about it. How many of us will accept Krishna washing our lotus feet? And then taking that water and putting it on his head. If you get a chance. So, but Narada Muni is completely fine with it. He's sitting and accepting all of this. And Prabhupada writes, Narada Muni perfectly knows that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but knows that Krishna is doing it for the society at large and therefore accepting the respect that Krishna is according him. So this is Krishna, right? You can also see, he doesn't see statuses in terms of economy also. Etiquette means etiquette. The most drastic difference you can see was Krishna was owning 16,108 palaces and incredible riches. And his friend Sudama was so poor that he didn't have proper clothes to wear. He didn't have anything to bring to Krishna, that he had to borrow from his neighbor this flat rice, right, to bring to Krishna. And still, you know how Krishna welcomed Sudama? When he saw Sudama at the gate of his palace, Krishna was coming running down from his balcony and then taking him and then welcoming him by bathing his lotus feet, giving him an incredible asan, a chair to sit on, and then inquiring about his wellness. Because Sudama was not only a guest to his house, but also was a Brahmana. This is Krishna, right? So, all of us are expected to follow this. One of the greatest, okay, we might say this is 5,000 years old, the society was completely different then. So therefore, these customs were possible. But 500 years back, when Krishna personally came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was even more stricter in his behavior. I don't know if that's a word, stricter. Even more strict in his behavior. It was incredible as a sannyasi how he would follow etiquette. He would never meet women. In fact, he would never meet a kshatriya. King Prataparudra was a very, very dear devotee of the Lord. And yet he would never give him audience. Said, what will the society think if I go and meet a person who is dealing with riches and women? I'm a sannyasi. And he said, in a white dhoti, if you have one single black dot, the entire focus will go on the black dot. Therefore, how can I do this? He was very, very careful about his behavior. Sanatan Goswami, when he goes to Haridas Thakur, he says, Haridas Thakur, you are such an amazing devotee of the Lord. You know why? Because you have these two incredible qualities, Sanatan Goswami says. One incredible quality that Haridas Thakur had was he would go and distribute Mahaprabhu's message door to door with Nityananda Prabhu to each and every person. Prachar, preaching. But then Sanatan Goswami says, there is another quality that completes you and makes you the greatest devotee of the Lord, which is achar or etiquette. Etiquette. So, as devotees, we are expected to follow this, both prachar and achar. So that when people look at devotees, if you have this incredible behavior of a Vaishnava, which is the crest jewel of a Vaishnava actually, the etiquette of a Vaishnava is what attracts people to a Vaishnava, is what attracts people to a devotee. I think Saint Francis of Assisi says, you must always preach, but speak if you must. We think preaching means you have to keep speaking and speaking and speaking. 90% of it is conveyed just by our behavior. How we act. Are we acting according to the philosophy that we are preaching? This is what is a devotee. This is what Sanatan Goswami is saying, is Haridas Thakur. You are an amazing devotee because you are incredible in achar and you're incredible in prachar. And Krishna is personally demonstrating this to us through his own personal behavior. So that, Prabhupada writes, the Lord purposely observed all these social customs so that others would follow him in the future. This is why. So I think I'll stop here and then see if there are any questions or comments or reflections.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Just
Krishna.
two thoughts. First, with Krishna, when the Brahmanas worshipped him, then he worshipped them. I think that there's a second lesson there, that the Brahmanas that are really worth worshipping, the ones that not only we can worship, but that are really, truly wonderful to worship, are those who have and do worship the Supreme Lord. Being a Brahmana that's worthy of worship is not just following the various rules and regulations, whatever. If they don't have Krishna on the heart, all we're getting is the rules. We're not getting the true rasa that they can gift us.
Correct.
I think that's another lesson.
Yeah. So that's a nice point also. A Brahmana is a Brahmana not because they just follow these ritualistic customs, but because they have Krishna in the heart. But even if you're following just the social customs, we are expected to accord respect to the Brahmanas. Actually, this point of respect is never in question. This is Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction. I wanted to talk about it. He says, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshashti chet pranatibhishya bhajantamisha shushrushaya bhajana vignam ananyamanya nindadi shunyam hridamipshita sangalabdhya. So Rupa Goswami has described the various kinds of association that we can have. Dadati pratigrihnati guhyamakyati pruchati bhungte bhojete cheva. These are the 6 kinds of loving exchanges: offering and receiving gifts, offering and receiving food, and then exchanging our mind and confidence. But how do we do this association? We have to discriminate among people, he says. There are 3 kinds of people: Kanishta Adhikaris, Madhyam Adhikaris, and Uttam Adhikaris. People who are neophytes, people who are in the middle stage, and people who have perfected the devotion. But he says, you have to respect everybody, irrespective of which position they are in. It doesn't matter whether they are new, whether they are advanced, or whether they are completely advanced. He says, but the way we respect them is different according to their different positions. But the point of respect is never out of question. He, in fact, Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Bhagavatam that tells the different qualities of these different kinds of devotees: a Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and a Uttam Adhikari. This is 11:247, I think. So he says, this is the problem with a Kanishta Adhikari or a neophyte devotee. This is the characteristic feature is that he thinks it's me and the Lord. Everybody else is not so important. I am the greatest devotee. He doesn't even respect the Vaishnavas. So therefore, Jiva Goswami says in the purport, they give the commentary of so many different acharyas have commented on this. Madhvacharya has commented on this verse. Jiva Goswami has commented on this verse. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented on this verse. So Jiva Goswami therefore says a neophyte devotee is useless for preaching purposes. Absolutely useless. Because he doesn't respect even the Vaishnavas. How can he respect anybody else? For you to preach to somebody, you actually have to respect them, right? If you come from a position of superiority and start talking down to people, nobody is going to accept your message, right? So even for people who are not following these rituals, even for people who are completely going off the track and doing activities that are completely against the Vedas, we should show respect to such people. So respect is completely not even in question. We have to always respect people, irrespective of where they are. How we show respect is what differs. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure is proper.
100% agree. I think there was one of the examples given is that there's 3 types of people, 3 types of ways to show respect. The people that are very much seniors,
yes,
like the sannyasis, we can go and offer obeisances at their feet, anything. Then there's other people who are closer to like a peer status. And then we go be very friendly, exchange of gifts, all these kind of things.
Yes.
And there's the people that we perhaps don't have the qualifications to be close to. So we respect them from a distance. We pay offer obeisances in our hearts,
yes,
and stay very far away because we can't relate to them
exactly
in a productive, prosperous way, is
Yeah.
what I think one of the teachings that we have.
Exactly. This is the exact verse I was quoting. Krishneti yasya giritam manasa driyeta means for a person who is chanting the names of Krishna, who is beginning, you basically respect him in the mind. Dikshashti chet pranachabishya bhajantamisham. For a person who is actually initiated, Prabhupada says in this purport so many times, which means second initiated at least, is you pay obeisances to him. Not the entire dandavats, but you pay obeisances to him. And for an Uttama Adhikari, you completely pay obeisances to him and try to serve him as much as possible. These are the different ways in which we pay respects to people. And it's good for the other person. It's a complete another discussion on why we do this, but it's good for us and good for the other person if we do it in this way.
Unless someone else knows a question, I had another thought regarding the varnas. The 4 varnas, those are, I think sometimes we forget that those are the exalted varnas, that the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and the Shudra, they're all highly exalted because they're all engaged in the Vedic process and connected through there. There's a bunch of other ones that are not connected. And like, I think Yavanas and Chandalas and all the other ones.
Yes.
I think sometimes within devotional circles, we forget that the Shudras are also highly exalted personages because they're so connected and they're so in their hearts and their minds, they know that they need to be connected.
Yeah.
And that acceptance and that actual active connection is very exalted.
Yes, definitely. Anybody who is in touch with the Lord, you can have this nature, He's a Vaishnava, right? We definitely respect such a person. And my spiritual master, Hanumat Preshaka Swami, he says about one such exalted devotee. He spent so much time with Jayananda Prabhu. And Jayananda Prabhu, he would say, his Brahmin thread was black with automobile oil. That was his nature. He would do things. He built the Rath Yatra cart. By nature, if you looked at him, he was a Shudra, right? He was doing things, working. But Prabhupada accorded him as the first saint of ISKCON. Right? Prabhupada said, Jayananda's picture should be there every time the Rath Yatra cart is pulled out. So for a devotee, this is completely, in the society of devotees, we don't discriminate in those terms. Of course, we have our own natures, and then we work according to our own nature till we get to a point where we can transcend these modes of material nature. But we, of course, have to think of devotees as very exalted. These are not ordinary people. Okay, anything else? Thank you for your comments. Yes, Rasraj. Can you get him the mic, please?
Thank you, Srinath Krishna Prabhu. So as devotees, this whole idea of actually following a specific duty is kind of goes out the window in one sense, right? Because effectively one's duty becomes the instructions of the Guru.
Yes.
In that sense. Of course, sometimes you do get certain responsibilities which are in line with your nature, but in several cases it might be completely off the charts. So how, and it's kind of difficult. How do you normalize? How do you create? I mean, the reason I'm asking this question is you're talking about satisfaction, and as you perform your duties, eventually the thought is that the duties will get you to the point of being satisfied, so that you're not doing it as a duty, you're doing it as your service to the Lord. But when you are given responsibilities and duties which are not in line with your nature, those still purify, but how does one perform those duties properly without the qualification, or rather the inclination?
Yeah. I think when Keshav Maharaj was here, he was saying three things. When I forgot those three things actually. I don't know, 3 or 4 things he was saying on what are the services that we have to do. Right? There are services that are absolutely essential. It doesn't matter what your nature is, what my nature is. They're essential services. We have to go and do those services. And we should also have services that are satisfying for us, where it is our nature. I like doing such a thing. So therefore, I do some service that actually is according to my nature. And I forget what the third one was. This was a very nice categorization that he gave, which was very practical. This is the place that we are in. These are the things that are required. If the roof is leaking, I go and fix it. If there is a rat in the altar, I go and take it out. It's there, right? I have to do this. What can I do? This is something that needs my attention, but it might not be my nature. I don't like to go near rats, but I have to go and take rats, right? Those are things. Okay, there is something else that I really like, right? So then I do those services also a little bit, so that it's satisfying for me. It keeps my nature up and it keeps my enthusiasm going. I forget what the third one was. But he said that it's really nice if we can spread our services in these 3 ways. I should go back and listen to his tape once again. Yeah. It was very nice in the way he put it. And this way, we're not just doing things that we completely don't like. There is also some... And also, I remember when Kalakanta Prabhu was here, he was saying, the first thing that you do in the morning is something that you really like. So that there is no regret at the end of the day that, oh, I've not done anything that I like. Right? He said for me, for Kalakanta Prabhu, it was writing. So first thing I do in the morning is I try to write something. Therefore, he has gotten something done in his day that is satisfying for him. So like that, all of us have something that we really like. So the first thing in the morning, we try to do something that we like. And then in that happy mood, we try to do some essential services where we We try to do things against our nature. But it's purifying. I don't like to wash vessels, but I try to do it sometimes.
The other side of the question was in terms of, you know, seniority um, within the society of devotees, I guess, with the community of devotees. You did mention that respect has to be offered in different ways to different personalities. We'll just look at our community essentially, and it used to be pretty interesting that there was a what should I say, the action of offering obeisances was very explicit. Yes, when you see a Vaishnava, you offer obeisances, kind of situation, which is basically not, I mean, in the sense, become, I don't know whether we have, I mean, I know I have become more complacent in doing that. With the sannyasi, yes, but it used to be also between devotees, and devotees met with each other. You offer obeisances. And vanchakalpatarubhyascha. And now the situation is more a little bit friendship kind of situation where, hey, Bol, and that's it. And so, what are your? I mean, I'm not saying one is better than the other. There are pros and cons of both, or rather, there are pros of both. I don't know, say there's cons of any. But how should devotees? There's etiquette and then there's duty. So, what are your thoughts on how we should be behaving in the society in the community of devotees? It's a matter of duty and a matter of etiquette.
So, initially it's not very spontaneous. So, it has to be done as a matter of duty. That is why we have this framework. Because by ourselves, we don't have this nature to go and behave like a Vaishnava. Therefore, we have this framework and say, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. On externally, it might seem, why there's so many rules to do this? But then it's because it's not in our nature to have all of these qualities. Look at those qualities that Krishna speaks of a devotee in the Gita. Krishna is expecting a lot out of a devotee. If we call ourselves a devotee, better have few of those qualities at least. But for us to start with, the spiritual master says, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. So therefore, what is important in a community is all of us have to agree upon this framework. If we don't agree upon this framework, common framework, then community is not possible. Each of us individually will do our own things. But when we come together, you'll do your own thing, I'll do my own thing. There has to be some common minimum program that all of us subscribe to. And say, okay, as a society of devotees, these are the basic things that all of us will follow. And if now somebody is not following, all of us can go and say, this is what we agreed upon. Can you please conform to what we agreed upon? If you have problems, please let us know why it's a problem to you, and we can help you. But this has to be the building block in anything, right? Like even secular societies, right? We have certain laws that all of us agree upon. It's called what? The penal code or whatever laws that you have. You can't cross a red light. This is what all of us have agreed upon, right? If you cross a red light, there are consequences. So the Shastras give us this boundaries and frameworks so that we can play within. There is still lots of freedom within this framework. It's not constricting. But this is what Krishna says, right? What is seems like poison in the beginning is sweet in the end. This is the mode of goodness. It's very hard to follow. But then if we keep following it, then it actually takes us to a higher platform. But the mode of passion tastes really sweet in the beginning. It's so easy. We don't have to do this, do that. But then it gets poisonous in the end. It starts breaking everything. So this is a very fine line that we have to follow, right? Because it can become niyamagraha in two ways. Niyama agraha means we start focusing on the rules so much that we forget the purpose of why we're doing it. And then we get so lax. Niyama agraha is like, Oh, the rules are nothing. Bhakti is everything. The rules are nothing. But then we start getting lax on that also, like not following the principles or whatever. So that's what Rupa Goswami says. It can destroy bhakti. Niyamagraha is one of the 6 things. Shadbir bhaktir vinashati completely can take us out. So this middle line is what we need. And for that, we need people who can actually guide us and say, okay, you're going too much on the ritual side. Focus more on why you're doing it. Okay, you're not really doing any of the rituals. Please follow some rituals also. It's going to help you. So somebody keeps us in check. Yeah, community building is a big thing. Yes.
Thank you. I think this is a really important topic to discuss as a community, because I often go back and think about Srila Prabhupada in the early days of ISKCON. We talk about rules and regulations and how he dealt with the devotees during those times. And I think somehow, as a society over time, we have temples and we have standards for deity worship and different things like that. And many of us have been practicing Krishna consciousness for 20, 30, some devotees 40, 50 years now, right? And there are still people that walk in the door today that are here for the first time. And they are like those devotees, in one sense, that walked in the door with Srila Prabhupada, that were hippies and had all kinds of habits and things that they're coming from. And so how to have those, I think what you're saying is so important. How do we to have those guides and elders and mentors that can help us do that in a way that everyone feels so encouraged in their spiritual life, right? And so I think what I come to is if I'm doing something in a way that discourages somebody in their Krishna consciousness, where they feel like, okay, I can't do this. Like the example that comes to mind for me often is my stepmother. She, long story, but when my father, Baliraj, passed away, at the end of his life, they became born-again Christians, and he had fully left Krishna consciousness in that sense. But at the end of his life, they were chanting together, they were reading Bhagavad Gita together, they became vegetarians, he had tulsi beads on his neck. And so she became very favorable to Krishna consciousness. She had a set of Srimad Bhagavatams, and she was very interested, wanted to know more. And she came to our temple here in Dallas, actually. And she's in her 60s. And she left. So I take personal responsibility for this. I didn't spend as much time with her as I should have been there. But she left feeling very discouraged in her spiritual life because she felt like she was an infant. Every time she did something, she was told, no, not like that. No, not like that. No, you're doing it the wrong way. You're doing it the wrong way. And so she felt like, I don't know what to do. This is too much. I'm in my 60s. I'm just going to go back to Christianity because this is familiar for me. I feel comfortable. God is there. And that's okay. It's not that there's anything wrong. You can practice Christianity in a wonderful way and connect with God like that also. But my point is, so this is something that I reflect on and think about a lot. How do we do it in a way that, yes, we encourage, with kindness and compassion, devotees to raise up to a standard. And at the same time, we remember that we're all in very different places in our spiritual journey. And so it's, I don't know that there's one clear answer, but it's something that requires a lot of thought and reflection constantly with every individual that I interact with. How can I interact with them in a way that encourages them and inspires them in their spiritual life? And do I have the relationship and know them well enough to do that?
Yeah. Actually, Krishna and Mahaprabhu exemplify how we have to do this. It's not a difficult thing at all. They were very strict with themselves and very compassionate to